Stop drinking water the way your doctor told you to. I know that sounds backwards coming from someone who spent almost 3 decades in a white coat treating men and women over 50 for bladder and kidney problems. But here's the truth. Nobody tells you at your annual checkup the advice to just drink 8 glasses a day, no matter what, is quietly destroying your sleep, your independence, and in some cases, your kidneys. And the reason you're waking up 2, 3, sometimes 5 times a night to use the bathroom isn't because you're getting old and weak. It's because you're drinking water at the wrong time in the wrong way without the one thing your body actually needs to hold on to it. I'm going to walk you through exactly how to drink water after 50 so you can sleep through the night again, and I'm going to show you the real disadvantages of drinking too much water at night, the real disadvantages of drinking too little, exactly how much to drink before bed, and whether you should be mixing something into that water. Stick with me until the end, because the very last thing on this list is something almost no urologist tells patients, and it has nothing to do with how much water you're drinking at all. Before we get into it, in a study tracking over 4,000 adults published in the Journal of Urology, researchers found that more than 70% of adults over 60 wake up at least once a night to urinate, and nearly a third wake up 3 or more times. That's not a minor inconvenience. That's broken sleep architecture, and broken sleep after 50 has been linked to higher rates of falls, memory decline, and even cardiovascular strain, because your body never gets the chance to move through deep restorative sleep. So when I tell you this is fixable, I mean genuinely fixable, not manage the symptoms fixable. Now, before we dive into the list, I want to ask you something because I read every single comment on these videos, and I mean that literally. Tell me your age and tell me how many times a night you're currently getting up. Is it once? Is it 4 times? I want to know, because it helps me understand who's actually watching, and it helps other people in the comments realize they are not alone in this. So many of my patients walked into my office thinking they were the only 72-year-old in the world getting up 4 times a night. They weren't. You aren't either. And let me tease you with this because it's coming up at number 1 on this list. And it is, without exaggeration, the most overlooked cause of nighttime bathroom trips in people over 50. It has nothing to do with how much water you drink in the evening. It has to do with where the water in your body is sitting during the day and what happens to it the moment you lie down flat. I had a patient, I'll tell you her story in a moment, who fixed her nighttime bathroom trips almost completely without changing a single thing about her water intake. She changed one habit during the daytime, and within 2 weeks, she was sleeping through the night. I'll explain exactly what she did when we get there. All right, let's count it down. 5 to 1, least powerful to most powerful, starting with number 5. Number 5. Stop treating all hours of the day the same when it comes to hydration. This is the mistake almost everyone over 50 makes, and it's not your fault, because for decades we were told to just spread your water evenly throughout the day and drink whenever you're thirsty, but your kidneys don't process water the same way at 9 in the morning as they do at 9 at night. There's a hormone called antidiuretic hormone, or ADH for short, and think of it as the night watchman for your bladder. During deep sleep, a healthy body releases more of this hormone, which tells your kidneys to concentrate your urine and produce less of it overnight, so you can sleep for 7 or 8 hours without needing to get up. But research on aging physiology has shown that the natural nighttime rise in this hormone can decline by as much as 30 to 40% in people over 65 compared to people in their 30s. That means the night watchman is falling asleep on the job, and your kidneys keep producing urine at daytime rates all night long, filling your bladder every 90 minutes to 2 hours instead of holding steady until morning. Here's why this matters specifically for an aging body. This isn't just about the hormone itself. It's connected to something called anabolic resistance, which is a term for how your tissues, including the tiny muscles and receptors that regulate hormone signaling, become less responsive to the signals your body sends as you age. Your brain might be sending the same signal it always did, but the receiving end isn't hearing it as clearly. It's like a delivery truck showing up at the right address, but the doorbell is broken, so nobody answers and the package just sits on the porch. The fix isn't to yell louder, meaning it isn't to just drink less water out of panic. The fix is to work with your body's rhythm instead of against it. Practically, this means front-loading roughly 60 to 70% of your daily water intake before 2 in the afternoon. If your target is somewhere around 50 to 60 ounces a day, which is a reasonable range for most people over 50, unless your physician has told you otherwise for a specific condition. You want the bulk of that finished by early afternoon. From 2 o'clock onward, you taper, small sips, not full glasses. For a synergy tip, pair your morning hydration with a source of potassium, like a banana or a small glass of orange juice, because potassium helps regulate the sodium and water balance in your kidneys, essentially helping your body's internal thermostat work more efficiently during the day so it doesn't overcompensate at night. Get this timing pattern right, and you've already solved a big piece of the puzzle, but there's something even more specific waiting at number 4 that most people have never even heard of. Number 4, what you're drinking matters just as much as when. I want you to think about every liquid that touches your lips after 4 in the afternoon, not just water, coffee, tea, wine, that evening glass of iced tea you have with dinner. Caffeine and alcohol are both diuretics, meaning they actively push your kidneys to produce more urine than the fluid volume you took in would otherwise suggest. And they do something else that's less well known. They suppress that same antidiuretic hormone we just talked about. So if you're already dealing with a weaker nighttime hormone signal because of age, and then you add a diuretic on top of it, you've essentially thrown gasoline on a fire. A frequently cited body of sleep medicine research has found that a single serving of alcohol in the evening can increase nighttime urine output by as much as 30%, and that effect is even more pronounced in people over 60 because the liver metabolizes alcohol more slowly with age, keeping its diuretic effect active in your system for longer. Caffeine has a similar, though slightly smaller effect. And here's the part that surprises people. It's not just coffee and tea. Chocolate, certain sodas, and even some over-the-counter pain relievers contain hidden caffeine that people don't account for. For an aging body specifically, there's an added wrinkle. As we get older, our bladder wall itself becomes less elastic, partly due to collagen breakdown, which is the same structural protein loss that causes wrinkles in skin, except here it's happening inside your bladder, reducing its ability to stretch and hold volume comfortably. So a bladder that could hold 12 to 16 ounces comfortably in your 40s might only comfortably hold 8 to 10 ounces in your 70s. Add a diuretic substance on top of a smaller, less elastic reservoir, and you have a recipe for multiple wake-ups. The practical fix? Cut caffeine off by 2 in the afternoon, and if you're going to have alcohol, have it with your evening meal rather than right before bed, giving your body several hours to process it before you lie down. The synergy tip here is pairing your afternoon caffeine, if you still want a cup, with food rather than on an empty stomach, which slows absorption and reduces the sharpness of its diuretic spike. Now, before we get to the top 3, and trust me, this is where it gets really interesting, I want to ask you to do 2 quick things. If this is helping you understand your own body better, hit that subscribe button, because I release new videos every single week specifically for people over 50 who want real, honest medical information without the fluff. And if you've made it this far, drop a like. It genuinely helps this video reach other people who are lying awake right now, Googling why they can't sleep through the night anymore. All right, let's get into number 3. Number 3, the size and speed of what you drink close to bedtime matters more than the total amount. This is where I meet so many well-meaning patients who've done everything right during the day, cut their caffeine, timed their water, and they're still getting up twice a night because of what happens in the final hour before bed. Here's the analogy I use with my patients. Think of your bladder like a water balloon, and think of a large gulp of water like turning a hose on it all at once versus a light drizzle. When you drink a large volume quickly, say a full 16-ounce glass in a few minutes, right before brushing your teeth, your stomach and small intestine absorb that water rapidly, and it moves into your bloodstream and then your kidneys in a concentrated wave, rather than a slow trickle. Your kidneys, especially aging kidneys with reduced filtration efficiency, which research shows can decline by roughly 30% between ages 40 and 70, aren't built to smoothly buffer a sudden wave like that overnight. So that wave becomes urine output roughly 1 to 3 hours later, which lands right in the middle of your deepest sleep cycle. This is closely tied to something called nephron loss, nephrons being the microscopic filtering units inside your kidneys, and by the time most people reach their 70s, they may have lost a meaningful percentage of the nephrons they were born with, simply through decades of normal wear. Fewer filtering units means each remaining one has to work harder and less efficiently handles sudden volume changes. kind of like a smaller road crew trying to handle rush hour traffic that used to be spread across twice as many lanes. The practical solution is simple, but people almost never do it. Stop water intake completely, aside from a few small sips to take medication, roughly 90 minutes before bed, and in that final window before that cutoff, sip rather than gulp. A 4 to 6 ounce glass consumed slowly over 15 to 20 minutes, alongside dinner, is far gentler on your system than a large glass gulped down right at the sink before bed. For a synergy tip, pair this evening sipping habit with a warm temperature rather than ice-cold water, since your body absorbs warm fluids slightly more gradually, giving your kidneys an easier, steadier job overnight, instead of a sudden spike. Now, I promised you something surprising, and here it comes, because number 2 is going to change how you think about that glass of water on your nightstand entirely. Number 2, plain water alone at night might actually be working against you, and this is where the "should I mix something in my water" question comes in. Here's a concept most people have never heard explained clearly: solute-free water. When you drink plain water with nothing dissolved in it, your kidneys have to actively work to concentrate your urine and hold on to that water. And that concentrating process is exactly the one that weakens with age, as we discussed with that antidiuretic hormone earlier. But when there's a small amount of sodium or electrolytes present, your kidneys have an easier reference point to know how much water to actually retain versus release, almost like giving the kidneys a roadmap instead of asking them to navigate in the dark. There's a reason emergency medicine physicians treating dehydration reach for electrolyte solutions rather than plain water. And while nighttime bathroom trips are obviously a much smaller concern than emergency dehydration, the underlying principle of the body handling electrolyte balanced fluid more efficiently than plain water holds true here too. For people specifically dealing with frequent nighttime urination, some urology clinics have started recommending a very small pinch, and I mean a genuinely small pinch, roughly 1/8 of a teaspoon of a mineral-rich salt, like a potassium-sodium blend, mixed into an evening glass of water taken with dinner, not right before bed. This isn't about loading up on sodium, which would be a mistake and potentially dangerous for anyone with high blood pressure or heart conditions, so please, if you have those conditions, speak with your own physician before adding anything to your water. But for many otherwise healthy older adults, that tiny mineral addition, taken earlier in the evening rather than right at bedtime, has been associated in patient reports with steadier overnight urine concentration and fewer wake-ups. This connects to inflammation too, something that quietly worsens almost every process in an aging body. Chronic low-grade inflammation, sometimes called inflammaging by researchers studying the aging process, can affect the tiny blood vessels feeding your kidneys, making the whole filtration and concentration system slightly less efficient. Proper mineral balance supports vascular health broadly, which indirectly supports better kidney function, which circles back to better urine concentration overnight. It's all connected, like gears in a clock, and when one gear is even slightly rusty, the whole mechanism runs a little rough. Now let me tell you about Richard. Richard was 68 years old, from a small town outside Sacramento, retired after 40 years as an electrician, and when he first came to see me, he told me he'd resigned himself to being tired all the time because he was getting up 4 times a night, every single night, for almost 2 years. He'd already cut back on water dramatically, drinking barely anything after lunch, and he was still getting up just as often. Plus now he was dealing with headaches and dizziness from being chronically underhydrated. We didn't add more water, and we didn't take water away. We simply restructured his intake using exactly what I described, front-loading his hydration earlier in the day, cutting his evening wine, switching to warm water sipped slowly at dinner with a small pinch of a potassium-based salt substitute, and stopping fluids 90 minutes before bed. Within 10 days, Richard was down to 1 wake-up a night. Within a month, some nights he slept straight through until his alarm. He told me it was the first time in 2 years he felt like himself again in the mornings, and that's really what this is about. It's not about the water itself. It's about giving you your mornings, your energy, and your independence back. Now, before I give you the number 1 item, and I promise you, this is the one that surprised even some of my colleagues When the underlying research started gaining attention, I want to remind you that all of the specific studies and sources I've referenced throughout this video are listed in the description below, so you can look into any of them further with your own doctor. Number one, the most powerful factor of all, and it's the one almost nobody talks about. What your legs are doing during the daytime hours directly determines how many times you get up at night, and it has almost nothing to do with your water intake itself. Here's the mechanism. As we age, and especially if there's any degree of venous insufficiency, meaning the valves in the veins of your legs that are supposed to push blood back up toward your heart become less efficient, fluid can pool in your lower legs and ankles throughout the day simply from sitting or standing. You might not even notice it as obvious swelling, just a little tightness in your socks by evening. But here's the key part. The moment you lie down flat to sleep, gravity is no longer working against that pooled fluid. Over the first few hours of lying down, that fluid gets reabsorbed back into your bloodstream and delivered straight to your kidneys, which then have no choice but to process it and turn it into urine, typically right in the middle of the night, hours after you've gone to bed and long after you stopped drinking anything at all. This explains something that confused so many of my patients for years. They'd tell me, "Doctor, I barely drank anything after dinner, so why am I still getting up at 1 in the morning and again at 4? The answer wasn't in their glass, it was in their legs. Research on venous function and nighttime urination in older adults has shown that a meaningful portion, in some studied groups over a third, of nighttime urination episodes in people over 60 are linked to this exact daytime fluid pooling and nighttime reabsorption pattern, entirely separate from how much someone drank in the evening. Think of your legs during the day like a delivery truck slowly loading packages all day long that don't get delivered until the truck finally stops moving at night. And then it unloads everything at once, right onto your bladder's doorstep, whether you asked for a delivery or not. For an aging body, this connects directly to circulation efficiency and even mitochondrial health in the tiny smooth muscle cells lining your veins, since those cells need consistent energy production to maintain proper muscle tone in the vein walls and keep those one-way valves snapping shut properly. As mitochondrial efficiency in those cells declines with age, the valves become slightly leakier and pooling becomes more likely, especially after long periods of sitting. The fix is almost absurdly simple and doesn't involve changing your water intake at all. Elevate your legs, ideally above heart level, for 20 to 30 minutes sometime in the mid to late afternoon, roughly 2 to 4 hours before bedtime. This gives your body a chance to reabsorb and process that pooled fluid during your waking hours instead of during your sleep hours, essentially having the delivery truck unload while you're still awake to receive the package instead of at 3 in the morning. For a synergy tip, pair your leg elevation time with gentle ankle pumps, flexing your feet up and down for a minute or two, which activates the calf muscle pump, one of the most effective natural mechanisms for pushing pooled venous blood back toward your heart. I mentioned earlier there was a patient whose story I wanted to share, and this is her. Margaret was 74, lived alone outside Tampa, and had been getting up 3 to 4 times a night for years, so much so that she'd started sleeping in a recliner because getting in and out of bed that many times had become physically exhausting, and she was terrified of falling in the dark. She'd already tried limiting water dramatically, and nothing changed. When we talked, I noticed her ankles were slightly swollen by evening, something she'd chalked up to just getting older. We didn't touch her water intake at all initially. We simply added 20 minutes of leg elevation with ankle pumps every afternoon around 4 o'clock. Within 2 weeks, she was down to 1 wake-up most nights. Within 6 weeks, she moved back into her own bed, and she told me, with tears in her eyes, that the hardest part hadn't been the physical exhaustion. It had been the loneliness of sleeping separately from her husband of 46 years because of a problem she thought had no real solution. It did. It was in her legs the whole time. So let's bring this all together because I want you to walk away from this video with something more than a list of tips. What we're really talking about here is your independence, the ability to sleep through the night, to wake up rested, to not spend your days exhausted and foggy because your body pulled you out of bed 4 separate times. That's not a small quality of life issue. That's the foundation for everything else. Your mood, your memory, your balance, your energy to actually enjoy your grandchildren, your hobbies, your mornings. And here's what I want you to remember most. It is never too late to fix this. I've seen patients in their 80s turn this around in a matter of weeks, not years. Your body, even an aging body, is remarkably responsive when you give it the right signals at the right times, whether that's timing your water intake to match your natural hormone rhythm, being thoughtful about what you drink and when, sipping instead of gulping in that final hour before bed, adding a small mineral balance to help your kidneys do their job more efficiently, or simply putting your feet up for 20 minutes in the afternoon so gravity works with you instead of against you while you sleep. You don't have to accept broken sleep as just a part of getting older. It isn't. It's a solvable problem, and now you have the exact roadmap to solve it. If this video helped you understand your own body a little better today, please subscribe, because I put out a new video like this every single week, all designed specifically for people over 50 who deserve real, straightforward medical information instead of vague generalities. And before you go, I want to know in the comments, which one of these 5 surprised you the most, and are you going to try leg elevation this afternoon? I read every single comment, and I'll be there answering as many as I can. I'll see you in the next one, and here's to getting your full night's sleep back.